So I don't know if everyone's been paying attention to this, but there's something happening in the workforce today. So I want to give a shout out to Case Study QB, always doing great work. So this has become a problem, and I've been talking about this as well. I experienced this about a year ago. So 4-day work week. Is this something that is doable? Iceland has done it, and now the UK is experimenting with this. I think this is something we could do here in the United States as well. Now, some people say you will not be productive if you don't have a 5-day or 6-day or 7-day, however long your day is, work week. That's actually not true. I actually had experience having a 4-day work week, at least for a summer. When I used to work in healthcare, one of the cool things I will say about that job was during the summer, we had summer Fridays. What does that mean? That means you didn't work on Friday, but you still got paid for it. So that was actually pretty cool. Now, some people think that means that you're not going to get all your work done. It actually didn't work out that way. Actually, what would happen is because you knew that you were going to have that Friday off, that actually made me more productive Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because I was looking forward to that extra day. I was able to get the same amount of work done in 4 days that I was able to do in 5 days. And the reason being is because we all had that Friday off, we didn't have these unnecessary meetings that took an hour, 2 hours out of our day when we could actually be doing our work. We were more productive. We were able to get more done. So the UK is experimenting with that. And this is Case Study QB here. UK tests 4-day work week program. There is no company I know of who has moved to a 4-day work week and lost money. So let's listen to this clip.
This morning, a 4-day work week sounds like a dream come true, but it's now a reality for thousands of people in the UK.
It's good, obviously, for employees who get more time back to spend with their families on professional development.
A 6-month trial period, organized in part by a nonprofit, has kicked off for British employees at 70 companies with no loss of pay.
Because when you're better rested, you're a better worker, you're more efficient in your job, you're more effective, you're more motivated.
They'll be paid 100% of their salaries for 80% of their previous work schedule, but they've committed to maintaining the same productivity, meaning doing the same work in less time.
It turns out that in virtually every industry, it's possible to do 5 days worth of work in 4, without stressing people out.
Advocates say it could bridge the gap between remote work advocates and companies pushing to bring employees back to the office full time.
I'm optimistic.
I'm going to talk about that too in just a second, the remote work environment and companies trying to push employees to go back into the office. I'm going to talk about that as well.
That even as we return, or we can return to something like normal, that we will be able to continue to experiment and kind of build on the best parts of the experience of the pandemic.
Some countries have already adopted a 4-day work week. Companies in Japan and Iceland are seeing success, but it's been slow to catch on in the U.S.
Some opponents say that it could destabilize the economy, putting undue pressure on businesses, especially those that have slim margins. What would you say to those people?
There's no company I know of, and I've studied hundreds at this stage, who have moved to a 4-day week and lost money.
Industries participating in this trial run in the UK range from banking to retail services to education. We'll see when this trial ends in December whether they're ready to cut back to 4 days a week for good. Rhiannon Alley, ABC News, New York.
Okay, so let's talk about 4-day work week, for example, because again, like I said, that doesn't mean you're going to lose money or the company's going to lose money. That doesn't mean you're going to lose productivity. Like I said, some of these hours could be cut out if they eliminate some of these meetings. That can simply just be one email. One email. Mr. X says, I would love a 4-day work week. Yeah, absolutely. So why is this coming up, right? So obviously, like during the pandemic, there were some companies that allowed employees to work from home, work remotely, if you were able to do so, if you had a job where you were able to do so. What we found was that after businesses started to open back up, people didn't want to come back to the office. And I experienced this as well. After I had been working from home remotely for a year, I didn't want to go back to campus to work. When they made us come back, I was like, oh my God, I hate this even more. And I already was not, a fan of my employer. But when I had to come back in, physically come back in and dealing with that traffic and that commute again, that's when I was like, no, I want to go back to working remotely. I don't like this. I don't like coming in. It takes more time out of your day, just the commute alone, right? So what they found is that once they started bringing people back into the workplace, physically back in, people started to quit. And I saw this at my employer as well. People were dropping like flies. Oh, you're bringing us back? I quit. No 2-week notice. I quit. I didn't give a 2-week notice. I was like, see ya. So I think people were able to find more balance when we were working remotely. For example, you didn't have to deal with an hour. Some people have 2-hour commutes here. You didn't have to deal with that commute, sitting in traffic, changing trains or switching to a bus, dealing with all of that, then trying to get back home in time to make dinner. Some people have to pick up their kids from daycare, get there in time so they're not late, so they don't have to pay a late fee. It's a hustle, bustle lifestyle. And people have been dealing with this for years. So when we were allowed to work remotely, guess what we realized? Holy crap, I got a part of my life back. Something that I think a lot of us didn't realize we were missing out on until we were given that opportunity to work from home. So you were asking people to give up that again. And after talking to other employees, one of the things that they said to me, and I don't have kids, but they did, one of the things they said to me is that they got to spend so much more time with their children. And that tells you just how hard we work people in this country, that they don't have enough time to spend with their kids. Their kids are growing up and they're not even around half the time to see them grow up because they're always working so many hours because you have to, because you need the money, right? So companies still trying to get employees to physically come back into the office. Now we have a new problem. We have inflation, high gas prices. And if you live in a location that does not have public transportation, you have to drive to work. RJ was just talking about this on Twitter earlier today. It cost him $60 to fill up his tank. He said he makes $16 an hour. He said so far in gas, he's been paying $300 every 2 weeks in gas. He said that doesn't leave him much money left over with from his paycheck. So to push people to come back into the office, especially right now when we have inflation, food prices are higher, gas is higher, I don't feel like that is realistic. And I don't feel like that's fair to the working class people in this country. Because I'm sitting up here thinking to myself, if you're making minimum wage, and I'm talking about people who live in states where they still have $7.25 an hour is the minimum wage. If that's what you're making, how are you paying for these gas prices? Because I'm not even willing to drive that far because of the gas. Like, I just, no. So to me, I think this is something that is going to be a problem for employers. And they're already starting to see it. Now, this is coming from NPR. The idea of working in the office all day, every day, no thanks, says workers. Now, listen to this. To Jonathan Pruitt, it just didn't make sense. A geospatial analyst who updates Google Maps for a living, Pruitt had been called back to his company's offices in Bethel, in Bethel, Washington, 5 days a week starting June 6th. Like many on his team, Pruitt had only worked remotely, having started the job in the pandemic. He adapted well to it, finding efficiencies such as multitasking during virtual meetings, using the time to process data. And yet now he's being told to report to office. Anyone who failed to report within 3 days of the return date would be processed as having abandoned their job. Nothing will change other than having a couple of snacks in our office and having an in-person meeting. We're kind of starting to think this job isn't worth it. So here's another thing that was weird too. When we did go back into the office, it was kind of strange because we still had all of these rules, these regulations where like if somebody came into your office, you had to have on your mask. If you were in the office by yourself, you didn't have to do that. So people would knock on the door and you find yourself putting it on, taking it off, putting it on, taking it off, putting it on, taking it off. And then you realize the only reason that you were physically there was for these in-person meetings, which you were already doing virtually when you were working remotely. So to me and to a lot of us, we just started to think, what's the point? Why are we here? We were doing so well working at home. It costs money to physically go into the office. You have to pay more. Working from home didn't cost me anything. Working from home, I didn't have to worry about, oh, I hope I get home in time so I can get dinner started and I didn't have to worry about all that. I could start dinner whenever. If I want to throw in a load of laundry while I'm working, I can do that too. Can't do that if you're physically in the office. Thanks for the super chat, Delthea. Hustle culture is a lie. It's a slave mentality used to control people, and it has little to nothing to do with productivity. Well said. Well said. Another thing about that too, you're still paid the same. You're still paid the same. So people don't want to come back in. When I say people don't want to come back in, I mean physically back in. I'm not saying people don't want to work at all. People don't want to go back. And I don't blame people for not wanting to go back. If you can do your job at home remotely, I think you should at least have that option to do it remotely. Now, if it's not every job's that way, right? Obviously, when I waited tables, I had to be there. There's no robot Sabby. So I had to be there in person. But if you can do your job from home, people are working at these companies like Google, Facebook. If you're doing like a tech job, those of you, if your job is 100% just you on your laptop, why do you have to physically go in? Now, if you want to go in, I think you should have that option too, but I don't think people should be forced back into the office just to try to create some presence that there's community there. And that was one of the things we were told. We want everyone to come back in because we want the students and everyone to see that we have community. I'm like, dude, shouldn't we have done that before the pandemic? Shouldn't we have actually had community before a pandemic happened? Now we got to pretend like we have one. Okay. All right. So it goes on to say here, source of tension between workers and bosses. More than 2 years into a pandemic that has no clear end, the debate over remote work has only intensified. Working from home isn't possible in many jobs, but for those who have the option, it's now evident that it is feasible, even beneficial. But how beneficial is a point of contention between workers and their bosses? Some bosses are deciding too much is lost when people aren't in the office and it's time to come back. Let me tell you what that really means. When they say that some of the bosses feel too much is lost when you're working from home and it's time for you to come back, you know what that really means? They want you back in the office so they can watch you. That's what that really is about. They want to be able to keep their eye on you. They want to see what you're doing. They want to be able to pop their head in your office just to make sure that you're actually working. That's what that's about. It's about control. Control. Okay, let's go back. All right. So it goes on to say Tesla's boss, Elon Musk, is one of them. Surprise, surprise, ladies and gentlemen. He recently, make this a little bit bigger. He reasoned that Tesla, oh, whoops, where did it go? He recently emailed his employees with the subject line, remote work is no longer acceptable. Oh, surprise, surprise. Union busting Elon Musk. He reasoned that Tesla creates and makes the most exciting and meaningful products of any company on earth. This will not happen by phoning in. Boy, I tell you. So yes, he was one of the ones that told his employees that they need to return to the office or quit, by the way. Musk told them anyone wishing to do remote work must be in the office for a minimum, and I mean a minimum of 40 hours a week. You guys see this? This is capitalism at its finest. He told his employees anyone interested in doing remote work must be in the office for a minimum of 40 hours a week. So that tells you right there that Tesla employees are working more than 40 hours a week. If I had to guess, he's saying 40 is the minimum. Some of them are probably working 60 hours a week. If I had to guess. Apple too wanted to bring people back to the office 3 days a week. But just last month, the company decided to postpone its plan for more than 1,000 current and former employees, signed an open letter called the plan efficient, inflexible, and a waste of time. Stop treating us like school kids who need to be told when to be where and what homework to do. Yes, shout it out loud. I love it. I love it. It has yet more evidence of the shift in balance of power between management and rank and file, as demand for workers has hit record highs in the past year. Companies are finding it hard to enforce unpopular policies and mandates when they fear their workers could just walk away. Guys, we have more power than we may realize. I'm telling you, at my previous employer, when people started quitting weekly, I was getting an email every week. So-and-so is leaving. So-and-so is leaving. So-and-so has been here for 15 years and they've decided to leave. That was like weekly. When people start dropping like flies, what are you going to do? Then they have to give you something just to keep the people they have there to stay. We have more power than we realize. More power than we realize. We have to use that power to our advantage. And I don't think there's been a better time in my lifetime that we can do that. Because right now, they need us more than we need them, right? The employers, these companies, these businesses, they're struggling. What do we hear them on the news all the time say? We have all these open positions. Nobody wants to work. No, boo. No one wants to work for your wages. No one wants to work for a job that barely gives them benefits. No one want to work for a job where they have to be employed there for 90 days or 6 months before their health insurance benefits can kick in. That's the problem. So this is the time. If you want to make bargains, I told someone this the other day on Twitter. Gas is too expensive. Now is a good time to tell your boss, I don't know if I can come into work today because I can't afford gas. Try it. See what happens. What are they going to do? Fire you because you said you can't afford gas? It's a reality. Try it and see what happens. Ask for a raise. Now is a good time to ask for a raise. I can't afford the gas. I can't afford the groceries. Now's the time for us to really have the power. But you have to think about the way that these companies have treated us. These businesses have treated us for all of my lifetime. Ever since I had a job, I got my first job when I was 16. You got to think about the way that they've treated us and the way they've exploited workers. And by the way, these CEOs are continuing to get rich. They want to remain in power and they want to continue to exploit people. The only difference is this time around, they may not have as many people to exploit. And that can affect production.